early workers' movements in England. This is the topic we started yesterday. So, here it is the first time in England a movement started by workers against the industrial owners. At the time, a war was going between England and France. It was the war time between England and France from 1792 to 1815. Okay, so due to this war, there England was busy in that war. So the trade between England and Europe was disrupted by the war. England was focusing on war with France. So, due to this war, England was not able to focus on the trade. They were engaged in the war. So, the trade from England to other European countries that was disrupted. That means disturbed. Okay. So, due to what happened, the production was declined because many of the factories were closed. As factories were closed, unemployment increased there. Hmm? When unemployment increased, factories were closed. Then essential items, that is food, they take bread and meat as food there. How do we take rice every day? There they take bread. So bread and meat is the essential food item of people of England, the Europeans. So its prices increased. The prices of this bread and meat was very high. The wages were very low. They were not able to buy bread and meat with low wages. So they demanded bread and meat should be supplied for people at low price. So for that, in 1795, which year? In 1795. Okay, as the people were going against the government, there the government passed an act. Acts are passed by the parliament. Parliament is given complete authority to make laws. So by the parliament in England, an act was passed. What was that act? Two combination acts. So what was there in this act? People were not allowed to fight against the parliament and the king. Okay, this act says that if anywhere a meeting held to provoke the people, provoke ante రెచ్చగొట్టడం. Okay, so to provoke or to incite means to what to call provoke the people, that is called incite. So how people are incited? By conducting a meeting or by writing the problems of the people in the newspapers, that what you call writings. So by writing and by speech, there should not be incite to the people. That means as per the Combination Act, if anywhere people are provoked by speech or writing, that is illegal. Illegal means it is not legal, it is crime, right? So, as it is a crime, it is considered violation of the law, that is contempt of the king. If by speech or by writing anywhere the people are incited, it is the violation of law that is going against the king as per Combination Act instead. So this is the act England Parliament passed in 1795. Okay, and this act also banned conducting public meetings, right? People were not allowed to conduct public meetings, and that should not be more than 50%. Below 50% are allowed here. Okay, so more than 50%, if there any meeting was going, that was illegal. So that is also banned by two Combination Act. And another important thing which Combination Act permitted was old corruption. Old corruption was permitted. So what is old corruption here, right? This is the term old corruption. The word old corruption, right? It is what is old corruption? This is the term used for giving special privileges for monarch and the parliament. So what is the special privileges? That is right to vote. Right to vote was there to only parliament members. Then who were the parliament members? Landowners, manufacturers, professionals. Okay, they had right to vote. And monarch, the king of England, enjoyed a divine right theory. King was not answerable to anyone. This is a special status, what we call special privilege for monarch and the parliament. This was continuing. So to continue this, the two Combination Act was passed. Okay, and this privilege is given to monarch and the parliament here is called old corruption. So the new two Combination Act which passed in 1795 permitted and continued the old corruption. Okay, and these were parliament members. They were not ready to extend the right to vote for working population. Who are called working population? Those who are in industries. Okay, so working people, they did not have right to vote. And as the price of the bread and meat was high in England, people started importing. Importing means buying the bread and flour from other countries, okay, at a cheap rate. So if bread is imported from other countries, then who will buy the bread here in England? So here the England Parliament made one more law, that what we call corn laws. What we call corn instead. What is corn law? Corn law prevented importing food from cheap food from the other countries. Okay, so that the bread price in England should reach certain level. Okay, they wanted that the people should not buy or import anything, any food item from other countries. So there was a ban on imports to the England as per the corn laws. So corn laws they passed, understand, and many of the workers were thrown out of the employment, right, as the factories were shut down due to the war between England and France. Instead, workers in the cities and factories they were hungry as they were thrown out of the employment, and the prices of the bread and meat was high. So they've started a protest out of the frustration with hungry. They were in frustration as they lost jobs, that is work, and they were in low, they were suffering with unemployment. They were not able to buy the food for their family members. So all these things made workers to unite. So in the towns and in the cities, workers united, and there they started food riots. What do you mean by food riots? A riot started demanding the water food, that is called food. People wanted food as its price was high. They were not able to buy the food, that is bread, understand. So people started riots in the sense rebellion, a revolt for getting the food is called food riots, understand. So throughout the England there were food riots from 1790s, understand. Their food was bread. Bread was a staple item. Staple item means most of the people in the nation eat bread and it is produced. Understand? It is very important food item of the poor, but its price was very high. Understand? As its price was high, there poor people were not able to buy it with their low wages. That means the wages of the poor people were not enough to buy the bread. Understand? So the price of the bread, which was high, that decided the standard of living of the poor people. If see, that means the people who were not able to buy the bread because of its price is high, okay, there the standard of living of that people was that people was very low. So people wanted the bread, that is their food. So they waged food riots and seized, what you call, they seized a large stock of bread. Wherever the bread is stored in the godowns, there the people attacked on the stocks. They brought all the bread stocks under their control and sold that bread at a reasonable price, that is a correct price. That means what is by correct price? The price at which every individual can buy. That means the price at poor people can buy is called affordable and morally correct price. So at that price, these people who seize the stock of bread, they sold the bread at affordable price, and that affordable price was very less with the price of the profit hunger traders. Who are profit hunger traders? Traders were aimed to earn the profit, understand. They wanted only the profit, so they are called profit hunger traders. So their price was very high. So here these people who seized the large stocks of the bread, They sold the bread at very least price than the price charged by profit hunger traders instead. So there were food riots throughout the water country. These food riots continued up to 1840 instead. And these food riots were very high during the worst years. What in by worst years? There in a year where there was a shortage of bread very much, where the what to call crops failed due to the worst year, there the food riots were very high. So the food riots united the people to get bread at affordable price. In addition to this food riots, one more movement started in Britain, that what we call enclosure. What we call enclosure movement. This is also one issue in England which made many of these small farmers to suffer. So what is enclosure here? See, in England there were many small farmers with a small piece of plot. The large farmers, especially landowners, that is the feudal lords, who were the owners of a large area, they created a fence on the lands covering the small pieces of the small peasants. Here, enclosure in the sense large landowners, they seized, they occupied the lands of the small peasants and created a fencing to the lands so that small farmers could not enter into such places. So small farmers, they were not able to resist and fight against the domination of the landlords. Landlords were very strong and dominant in their locality. So with their domination and power, they occupied the lands of the small peasants and created a fencing. That means a boundary they created. This is called enclosure. So what happened with the enclosure? Small peasants who had some small piece of a plot, they lost it. Hundreds of small farms are merged and created a large plot. That means many hundreds of small peasants lands, that means small piece of a plot of many hundreds of small farmers were seized by large landowners and occupied. So in that way small peasants suffered a lot, and many of the poor rural families, they were affected by these, by this means by enclosure, and they moved to industries to work in industries. It was a period of development of industries in England. Due to the industrial revolution, many industries sprang up there. So at the same time, large landowners, by the process of enclosure, occupied small pieces of a plot of small farmers. So small farmers lost their lands, and they were not able to fight with the landlords. So they left the what rural areas and started working in industries. See, they lost their own lands. Another thing is that they started working in industries. In industries also, the working conditions were very hard. They were not able to get a proper wages. Understand? So by industrial revolution, there they brought machines. Machines are brought into the industries. Instead of using the workers in industries That means in place of manual production, there the production started using the machines. The first machines were used in cotton industries. Which industries? In cotton textile industries. In place of thousands of workers, their industrial owners used machines. So when machines were used, what happens? Workers were thrown out of the employment. Machines were producing on large scale. Okay, in a short period, the production was high. Okay, and the wages no need to be paid to the machines, right? Thousands of handloom weavers, they were thrown out of the work. Handloom weavers, they got work from the industrial owners. Now industrial owners purchased machines, so there is no need of handloom weavers. So handloom weavers, they lost their work, and they were thrown into the poverty. They were suffering with the poverty. They did not have work, and their work was very slow when compared to the machine work. So one side they had lost their lands due to the process of enclosure. Second is that two combination act which passed there, uh, allowed these people to buy or import cheap bread made from the flour from other countries. And third is that they lost employment. Understand? So due to this position, they started what you call protest movements. Understand? So here in 1790s, from 1719s, we see that the weavers began there should be minimum wages, legally minimum wages. What is mean by legally minimum wages? That means Parliament has to pass an act on minimum wages. That is called legal minimum wages. Wages were very low. Wages were given to the workers, that is weavers, as per the wish of industrial owners. So from 1790s onwards, weavers who suffered with low wages, they demanded immediately Parliament should pass an act on minimum wages. That is called Legal Minimum Wages Act. Understand? So Parliament was not ready to pass an act on minimum wages because the members of the parliament were landowners, manufacturers, industrial owners. So how does they go against their profit, right? So there the parliament refused what you call the demand of the weavers that there should be a legal minimum wages. Understand? So they were suffering with shortage of food and with the low wages. So out of the desperation, frustration, these people started on striking. Weavers have gone what to call on strike. They started on moving on strike. Understand? Out of the frustration, these cotton weavers, they destroyed power looms. What do you mean by power looms? Machines which are operated on power. So in Lancashire is a city in what you call England. There we see many of the cotton weavers, they felt that power looms are taking the livelihood of the what you call handloom weavers. Handloom weavers have lost work due to the power looms. So the livelihood of the handlooms handloom weavers was taken by power looms. This was the belief of the cotton weavers. So cotton weavers in Lancashire, they destroyed the water power looms. They believed that power looms were destroying, taking the life and livelihood of the workers. Understand? This is a kind of a protest started by the cotton weavers. Another is that in Yorkshire also one city in England. There the sheep, what you call sheared sheep, what you call here Yorkshire. In Yorkshire, croppers who traditionally sheared the sheep by hand. That means there were some manual workers used in cutting the hair of the what you call sheep. That is called shearing the sheep. You know, for this sheep, there is hair on it. It's a fur. Understand? So the fur of the sheep is sheared manually. In place of that, owners of the sheep, they purchased shearing frames. What they purchased? Shearing frames, which shears the sheep. Okay. So this is also one reason for the social protest movement, because many of the workers who depended on shearing the sheep, they had lost their livelihood for shearing frames. So in England, workers started destroying the shearing frames. In 1830, in the riots of 1830, farm laborers found their jobs could be taken by the new threshing machines. Threshing machines, which separates grain from husk and stand. So throughout England, wherever the machines are used, their workers started a movement. So workers believed that these machines were taking the life and livelihood of the workers. So workers started destroying the machines. So here we see that there the riots started by the workers to smash and destroy the machines. So in 1830, there was a revolt by workers in destroying the machines. In that revolt, 9 workers were given death punishment. They were hanged, and remaining 450 workers who were taking part in destroying the machines, they were taken to Australia as as they were treated as treasures, as they were treated as accused. Understand? So 9 of them were hanged. Remaining 450 were sentenced to what? Jail in Australia. In England, whoever given the imprisonment, they were taken to Australia. So in that way, we see that there the workers suffered a lot. Understand? By the what to call this kind of rule and laws which not supported the uh, workers. So workers were not given proper wages. Their livelihood was disrupted. uh, they were paying high amount to buy the bread. They were suffering with the poverty. They lost their and lands. They were not given right to vote. Understand? And in all these, they were not given the right to go for strike. So what is the way for people to get success in fulfilling their needs? How could they get success to fulfill their needs? The only way is to destroy the machines. As the right to protest, that means they were not given, workers were not given a right to express their problems to the government. That is right to protest. The right to protest was not given. So the only way for workers to destroy the machines, understand, which taken away the livelihood of the them, understand. So they have gone for what? Destroying the machines. This is the first social protest movement, early workers movement first started in England. Okay, and another movement also started there in Europe, that what we call Luddism. What we call Luddism. Understand? So it is also one protest movement. In this protest movement, the leader was General Ned Ludd. Who was the leader? General Ned Ludd. So General Ned Ludd was a very efficient leader. People, that means workers, moved by his words. Understand? He was an inspiration for many of the workers. So he was called a charismatic leader. What do you mean by charismatic? Who creates a miracle. So General Ned Ludd was a charismatic leader to the workers, and he was a leader so that on his name the protest movement carried, and that what we call Luddism. What it is? Luddism. Understand? So what is Luddism? What are the demands of the Luddism? Right? It started in 1811 to 1817. Okay. This movement started in destroying the machines, assaulting the machines. This movement aimed minimum wages. What are the aims of this movement? That is, minimum wages is the main aim of the Luddism. Okay, and they also wanted to reduce working hours of women and children. Children and women were given long hours of work. So they wanted that minimum wages, first one. Second is that they wanted to reduce the work of women and children. And third is that they demanded those workers who have lost work because of machines, they should be given jobs. Understand? That means restoration of work for those workers who had lost their jobs because of the water machinery. Understand? So for all these things, there should be a right to the workers. So they demanded that workers should be allowed in forming, what you call, in creating unions, what you call trade unions. So they also demanded that they should be given a right to form the water trade unions. With that, they could represent their demands legally to the government. Understand? So workers still, they did not have any powerful trade union. There was no powerful trade union. Understand? Whenever they united, then they have to go for expressing their problems to the government through a legal right, that is a right to protest or right to form the trade unions. So they did not have any, what you call, unions, trade unions, workers unions. Understand? So there was only way for them that fighting against the factory owners by damaging the machines. So workers thought that they have only one way, that is destroying the machines and the stock of the water factory owners. So here this is the only way for what expressing their problems and to achieve the what their demands. So in many cases we see that the factory owners, they agreed to discuss with the workers for better working conditions. Middle class persons also participated, shopkeepers, then craftsmen, all these people, what to call, they thought that machines were brought to remove the work of the water workers. Understand? So their machines were unnecessary. They felt that machines were unnecessary because people are there to work. Understand? So in this way, what they were very much social protest, and in many places, some of the workers have gone for destroying the machines all of a sudden on the name of the water General Ned Ludd. And some secret organizations also worked with a plan and coordination in destroying the machine. This is the what General Net started